The alarm clock sounds its daily decree, shattering the fragile truce of sleep, and in that split second of lucidity, before the coffee is brewed and the uniform is donned, you feel it, that immense, crushing weight. It is not physical fatigue, though the body is certainly tired. It is a psychological inertia, the profound realization that despite having the theoretical keys to freedom, financial independence, geographical mobility, political liberty, you are, undeniably, a prisoner. You are shackled. You are serving a sentence of which the duration is unknown, but the daily demands are brutally clear. And here is the uncomfortable truth. No external tyrant locked the door. No government official or oppressive regime demanded this particular exhausting routine. You built the cell. You forged the chains. You installed the warden in your own mind. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who dared to stare unflinchingly into the abyss of human existence, called this intricate self-imposed confinement the prison of obligation. He identified the invisible architecture of the cage that men meticulously construct, brick by brick, expectation by expectation, until their entire life becomes an inescapable structure of musts and shoulds. This feeling of existential burden is universal, an invisible consensus of suffering that spans continents and cultures. Before we dismantle the complex walls of this prison, I want to know where this message finds you. Where in the world are you currently confronting your own obligations? State your city, make your presence known. Now, let us turn the gaze inward. The modern man prides himself on his autonomy. He chases entrepreneurial freedom, he demands transparency, he organizes his life around maximizing personal choice. Yet, for all this celebrated freedom, the anxiety is relentless, and the commitments pile up like unpayable debts. This is the central paradox Schopenhauer dissects. The very pursuit of a happy, meaningful life, guided by societal definitions of success, transforms into an ironclad obligation that guarantees misery. Schopenhauer's worldview is rooted in the relentless, blind, cosmic force he termed the will. The will is the engine of all existence, a striving, desiring, unsatisfied force that manifests in humans as desire, need, and ultimately suffering. Every time the will compels you to achieve, to possess, to fulfill, it creates a new layer of suffering, because the satisfaction is temporary and the striving immediately begins anew. Obligation in this context is simply the cultural institutionalization of the will's demands. It is the organized, socially sanctioned system designed to keep us chasing, to keep us striving, and crucially, to keep us building our own walls higher. Consider the narrative of the perfect life that is sold to us, the script that society dictates we must follow to be considered a respectable, successful man. This script is composed entirely of obligations. You must secure the education. You must climb the professional ladder. You must accumulate the precise symbols of success: the mortgage, the car payment, the investment portfolio, the specific type of partner and family structure. These aren't presented as choices. They are presented as non-negotiable rites of passage. They are the cost of admission to the club of being someone. But every single one of these necessities, once acquired, adds a new heavy chain. The house is not a haven. It is a 40-year debt demanding ceaseless work. The career ascent is not freedom. It is a commitment to performance, compliance, and relentless self-monitoring, all under the shadow of corporate expectation. The beautiful life built for display is not genuine happiness. It is a stage set that requires constant maintenance and an exhausting performance for the audience of peers and critics. The prison is silent, pervasive, and worst of all, it is disguised as purpose. We believe we are making responsible choices, demonstrating maturity and character, when in fact we are merely responding to internalized mandates. We confuse servitude with virtue. We mistake necessity for destiny. The moment we accept an obligation, whether it is to a job we despise because of the salary, or to a social function we dread because of networking potential, we are effectively handing over a piece of our autonomy. Schopenhauer observed that most men live their lives fundamentally afraid of poverty, afraid of social disgrace, afraid of being deemed a failure. And it is this very fear that makes us rush toward obligation, because obligation promises a temporary shield against these fears. It offers a standardized path that, while exhausting, is predictable. We prefer the comfortable misery of the cage we know to the terrifying unpredictability of genuine, undirected freedom. The man who operates solely on obligation is perpetually burdened by future shock. His focus is not on the present moment or on authentic self-realization, but on servicing the debts of his own making. He works 80 hours a week not because he loves his work, but because he must maintain the lifestyle the job permits, a lifestyle which itself demands those 80 hours. He is locked in a vicious feedback loop. The will drives the desire for status. The pursuit of status creates crushing obligations. The obligation demands constant effort, and the constant effort prevents the reflection necessary to realize the entire system is optional. Schopenhauer compels us to examine the very root of our ethical systems. Where does the sense of duty come from? Often it is not derived from true internal moral conviction, but from fear of consequences, social ostracism, legal penalty, or the dread of a guilty conscience instilled by external standards. The obligation prison operates on guilt and shame. If you deviate from the script, society, and your own internalized warden immediately punish you with the judgment of irresponsibility, recklessness, or failure. Thus men remain on the path, sacrificing their peace of mind and their unique individual potential simply to avoid the sting of social disapproval. They choose the well-trodden, miserable path of the conformist because the thought of standing alone in the clearing, truly free, is paralyzing. What makes this prison so insidious is that it is often staffed by seemingly benign architects. Family expectations, cultural heritage, and religious dogma, all framed as the bedrock of a good life. But when these structures are adopted without genuine conscious evaluation, they cease to be guides and become masters. The dutiful son who sacrifices his artistic calling for a career in law to appease his father is building a cell of resentment. The woman who marries for financial security and social standing, ignoring her own emotional needs, is exchanging genuine connection for a beautiful, cold cage. Schopenhauer is not arguing against responsibility, but against the unexamined obligation, the duty we accept not because it aligns with our deepest self, but because it is the path of least resistance against social pressure. Think about the psychological cost. The constant need to meet external standards requires a fundamental severance from the self. To succeed within the prison framework, you must often suppress your authentic interests, mask your true vulnerabilities, and perform a version of yourself acceptable to the guards, society, peers, management. This act of sustained emotional labor is exhausting. It is what leads to the profound burnout and sense of emptiness that characterizes so many successful, obligated individuals. They possess everything society promised, yet they are internally bankrupt because they spent all their psychic energy servicing the debt of obligation rather than investing in their own genuine existence. The moment of clarity, the first step toward dismantling the prison, involves recognizing the specific nature of the chains. It requires realizing that every "I have to" or "I must" often translates into "I am afraid of what will happen if I don't." The walls of the prison are not made of concrete and steel. They are made of unexamined fear, deferred dreams, and the inertia of habit. They are reinforced by the sheer momentum of a life already lived according to someone else's blueprints. This is the essence of Schopenhauer's challenge: to find the courage to pause the frantic striving long enough to question the source of the striving itself. Why are you running? Who set the finish line? And what happens if you simply refuse to participate in the race? The fear of not conforming is often a far greater deterrent than the consequences of nonconformity. The fear is immediate and emotional. The consequences are often manageable and, in many cases, entirely fabricated by societal expectation. The man trapped in obligation lives in a state of perpetual debt, not merely financial debt, but a metaphysical debt owed to external ideas of success. He views his own time, his most precious and finite resource, not as something to be cherished or used for self-cultivation, but as a commodity to be traded for the maintenance of his prison walls. This man is constantly budgeting his time, optimizing his efficiency, all in service of commitments that drain his vitality. He cannot simply exist. He must perpetually perform his usefulness to the system. And Schopenhauer's brutal insight is that the system, the will itself, is indifferent to his sacrifice. The moment he falters, the system simply replaces him with another man eager to take on the beautiful, debilitating chains of obligation. We have only just begun to scratch the surface of this profound and devastating self-imprisonment. We have established the cell, identified the warden, and named the architect. The next crucial step is understanding the complex layers of moral and social chains that Schopenhauer identifies as the specific tools of confinement. We must look at how love, marriage, and career ambition are transformed from avenues of fulfillment into binding contracts of lifelong servitude, all in the name of duty. The path to freedom starts with a single, clear realization. You are responsible for the chains you carry. Freedom is not granted. It is claimed often at the painful cost of disappointing those who benefit from your captivity. If this concept, that your sense of duty is the very thing holding you hostage, has shifted your perspective, then it is time to solidify that discovery. You must internalize this truth. Show me you are ready to identify the first chain. Comment right now with this powerful, declarative phrase: I see the chains. This is the signal that you are acknowledging the invisible architecture of your life. Do this immediately. The universe rewards decisive action. Furthermore, if the raw, unvarnished truth of these concepts resonates with you, you have found your philosophical alignment. You belong here, among those who seek genuine power and freedom, not performance. Do not hesitate. Subscribe to this channel and actively engage with the content. Activate notifications now, guaranteeing you never miss the strategies required to reclaim your autonomy and build a life defined by your own will, not the will of others. And now brace yourself. We have laid the foundation of the prison, but in the next part of this brutal dissection, we will uncover the specific methods by which society, and our own inner fears, weaponize our most sacred relationships and highest ambitions to keep us permanently incarcerated. Prepare for a deep dive into the corrosive nature of duty and how the highest expectations of men become their heaviest burdens. The revelation that awaits you in the continuation of this journey will fundamentally change how you view every commitment you have ever made. Do not miss it. The modern man wakes up to the sound of his obligations. The alarm clock is not a suggestion, it is a summons. He moves through his morning rituals, each moment already assigned, already accounted for, already owned by some external or self-imposed demand. He checks his phone, and the lit screen is not a source of communication, but a ledger of impending duties, emails to answer, deadlines to meet, appointments to keep. He believes this density, this ceaseless activity, is the definition of success. He views his heavy schedule not as a burden, but as a badge of honor, proof of his indispensability, his importance, his ultimate value to the world. But Arthur Schopenhauer looks upon this man and sees not a hero of industry, but a prisoner celebrating the craftsmanship of his own chains. The man believes he is free because he chooses his tasks, but Schopenhauer reveals the devastating truth. The choice is merely which cell within the self-constructed penitentiary he prefers to inhabit that day. We are entering the darkest corner of Schopenhauer's philosophy, the place where he maps the subterranean tunnels of human misery, showing precisely how the metaphysical striving, the blind and insatiable engine known as the will, architects the concrete walls of our daily servitude. This is the moment where we stop admiring the polished granite of the prison walls and begin to understand their composition, brick by self-imposed brick. Before we delve into the cruel geometry of this self-imprisonment, I want you to pause for a moment. Absorb the weight of this thought. Where are you right now as this radical idea permeates your mind? Tell me the city you are listening from. Because the chains of obligation, regardless of geography, are universal, but the environment in which you wear them often defines their metallic weight. The core delusion of the obligated man is that he confuses constraint with meaning. He operates under the assumption that if he fulfills enough external demands, if he satisfies enough societal contracts, he will eventually purchase his freedom or earn a final, lasting peace. But Schopenhauer demonstrates that the entire structure of obligation is inherently temporary, a continuous series of payments that never discharge the principal debt, the debt of existence itself. The moment a man accepts an obligation, he is essentially signing a forward contract for future suffering. Consider the professional sphere. A man takes on a project, a promotion, or a high-pressure role. He sees the title, the salary, the perceived authority. He believes this is a step toward freedom, a means to an end. But what he has actually done is bind his life force, his most precious and non-renewable resource, his time and mental energy, to an external corporate will that demands ceaseless feeding. His success in this role immediately triggers new obligations, managing subordinates, attending more draining meetings, reporting to higher powers, maintaining an image of ceaseless control. The walls of his career prison grow higher and thicker with every supposed achievement. This process is fueled by the will, the blind, striving force at the heart of all things. The will does not care about your happiness or your peace. It cares only about perpetual motion, perpetual striving. When a particular goal, an obligation met, is achieved, the will instantly generates a new one. The man believes he is acting freely, but he is merely a puppet whose strings are constantly being retied by his own internal, unconscious drive to remain busy, to remain desiring, to remain suffering. If the will is the architect, then societal morality is the construction crew. Schopenhauer was deeply skeptical of moral systems based solely on abstract duty or rigid law, Pflicht, famously contrasting them with the spontaneous impulse of genuine compassion, Mitleid. When obligation is derived from a moral code, the idea that you must do X because society, God, or reason demands it, the suffering is magnified. Why? Because true morality, Schopenhauer suggests, is born from the immediate, unselfish recognition of the suffering of another. It is an act of intuitive connection, a brief dissolution of the boundary between self and other. Obligation, conversely, is an act of cold, calculating enforcement. It forces the individual to act against his natural inclinations, or worse, to deny his true, immediate feelings for the sake of an abstract, imposed good. When a man forces himself to fulfill a hateful duty, he is not building character. He is fracturing his soul. He creates an internal tyrant, the dutiful self, that constantly suppresses the desiring self. This internal conflict is the essence of neurotic unhappiness. The man who constantly lives by what he should do, rather than what he genuinely wants to do, guided by wisdom, not immediate impulse, is perpetually at war with himself. He becomes a soldier in a war of self-denial, and his life, weighed down by oughts and musts, becomes a sustained low-grade torture. Look at the pervasive chains of financial obligation. Debt, in Schopenhauerian terms, is the ultimate enslavement of the future self. A man incurs debt, a mortgage, a loan, an extravagant purchase, and instantly he has committed not just his current labor but his future vitality to the repayment of an abstract numerical commitment. The money was spent, the pleasure is gone, but the obligation remains, rigid and implacable. This financial prison dictates his professional life. He cannot quit the job he despises because the chains of debt are cold and heavy around his ankles. He cannot take the risk he dreams of because the fear of default outweighs the lure of freedom. He is forced into routines of grinding repetition, not because he chooses the life of the worker, but because the structure of his self-imposed debt leaves him no alternative. He has traded potential future happiness for temporary past relief, and the prison of obligation is built from this cruel exchange. And the greatest trick the will plays is disguising routine as necessity. The obligated man constructs detailed, rigid routines, wake times, commute paths, meeting schedules, social calendars, all justified as efficiency, professionalism, or stability. But Schopenhauer sees these routines as psychological chains. They eliminate the terrifying vacuum of genuine freedom. They remove the necessity of existential choice. For the man terrified of confronting the ultimate unsettling questions of existence, why am I here? What should I do? The immediate, ceaseless pressure of obligation is a welcome anesthetic. The pressure of deadlines, the need to prepare for the next meeting, the stress of managing the next crisis, these are not unfortunate necessities. They are self-imposed distractions. The man would rather be miserable and busy than face the dread of being free and reflective. He fills his schedule to the brim, not to achieve goals but to avoid silence. He is so afraid of seeing the truth of the blind will that drives him that he busies himself building stronger walls to block out the light of self-reflection. The tyranny of keeping up appearances is another thick wall in this prison. Obligation extends far beyond formal contracts into the realm of social pretense. We become obligated to maintain a certain lifestyle, a certain level of consumption, a certain status among peers. We feel obligated to host the right parties, drive the right car, send our children to the right schools, and vacation in the right places. Not because these things bring us joy, but because failing to do so would expose us to the judgment of others. This social obligation is perhaps the most insidious because it is entirely constructed from negativity, the fear of shame, the fear of comparison, the fear of being seen as less. The man is obligated to perform this costly, exhausting role, trading his genuine comfort and resources for the fleeting, hollow approval of a society that is itself trapped in the identical performance. He is obligated to the lie he is living, and every time he smiles at the company dinner he secretly dreads, he reinforces the structure of his servitude. Schopenhauer would observe that the tragic irony is that the man needs these chains. The man needs the routine, the debt, the social pressure, because without them, he would be exposed to the true, raw nature of the will, a meaningless, endless striving that has no ultimate goal, but its own continuation. The obligations, therefore, are not just chains. They are comfort blankets woven from fear. They provide a sense of structure and importance to an existence that, at its root, is merely the will asserting its restless energy. We have explored the architecture of the prison, the professional, the financial, the moral, and the social walls that men build around themselves. We see how the will uses these obligations to keep us running, perpetually delaying the moment of reflective confrontation. The prisoner is busy building the treadmill he runs on, proud of the speed he achieves without ever questioning the destination, which is only more running. The consequence is a life lived in constant temporal displacement. The obligated man is rarely present. He is always either paying for the past, servicing debt, fulfilling old promises, or frantically preparing for the future, meeting deadlines, planning the next move. The present moment, the only place where peace or genuine philosophical contemplation can occur, is rendered merely a fleeting bridge between two forms of servitude. His entire existence is structured around the promise that tomorrow he will be free, tomorrow he will rest, tomorrow the obligations will cease. But tomorrow the will has simply generated a new, more demanding set of obligations. The greatest tragedy is the realization that the key to the cell is not held by an external warden, but is resting deep within the prisoner's own pocket, obscured by the weight of all the unnecessary, self-imposed duties he carries. He cannot reach the key because his hands are full of burdens he chose to pick up. The next step, which we have not yet taken, is to analyze the nature of the true escape, the ultimate denial of the will that Schopenhauer believed was possible. But before one can deny the will, one must first recognize its pervasive influence, its cunning ability to use the language of duty and necessity to cloak the reality of eternal servitude. This is the point where the weight of this philosophy must settle upon you, allowing you to see the invisible structure that governs so much of your behavior. Recognize the systems you maintain out of fear, not out of true desire. Identify the chains you actively polish because you mistake their metallic gleam for the sheen of success. The fundamental insight of this journey is that the majority of the misery men endure is not imposed by the outside world, but is manufactured internally and reinforced through voluntary compliance with the deceptive demands of the blind, striving will. This understanding is foundational. It demands a commitment to viewing your life not through the lens of achievement, but through the lens of constraint. The obligations are the evidence of your ongoing self-imprisonment. The power of this realization is immense. Now, I want to see how this profound concept has resonated with you. In the comments below, write a single, powerful phrase, a maxim, that perfectly captures the essence of how self-imposed obligation functions as a prison. Share that phrase so we can build a deeper repository of strategic thinking together. If this deep dive into the architecture of self-inflicted suffering illuminates your own chains, secure your place among those who seek genuine freedom. Hit the like button to signify this intellectual agreement, and subscribe immediately. By joining this collective, you ensure that you are continuously challenging the conventional delusion of success that society and the will demand. And trust this, our next conversation will shift from diagnosing the prison to detailing the difficult, deliberate steps required to dismantle it. We will explore the path that Schopenhauer proposes for the genuine cessation of the will's tyranny, a strategic confrontation that promises a state of quietude rarely experienced. Do not miss this essential next step. The strategy for true release is imminent. The key is hidden in the lock. That's the terrifying revelation Schopenhauer brings to the man struggling beneath the crushing weight of obligation. We have detailed the blueprints of the prison, charting the walls built from duty, the bars forged by expectation, and the guards appointed by social contract. Now we must face the climax, the definitive conclusion that asks, is there a way out? Or is the only freedom the terrifying acceptance of permanent incarceration? For Arthur Schopenhauer, the path to philosophical liberation begins with a fundamental act of recognition. You must see the prison not as an external structure imposed by the world, but as a hallucination maintained by your own deep, relentless, and unthinking desire. Every chain, every promise, every self-imposed mandate springs from the great blind underlying force of the universe, the will. This will is the engine of striving, the insatiable hunger that drives existence, and when we obey an obligation, whether moral, professional, or familial, we are simply acting out the latest demand of this cosmic tyrant. The will demands achievement, demands relationship, demands reputation, and in doing so, it creates the illusion of purpose, which we mistake for freedom. Schopenhauer forces us to witness the ultimate irony. Men do not suffer under obligation, they suffer under the will to obligation. Look deeply into this reflection, and ask yourself a penetrating question. Where are you observing this truth right now? Where are you sitting as the weight of your self-imposed duties momentarily lifts, allowing you to glimpse this deeper reality? Tell me the city you are watching from, because the realization of this trap must happen where you are, in your immediate environment, in the very structure of your daily confinement. The final stage of Schopenhauer's philosophy offers not comfort, but a devastating clarity. The world as we experience it is merely our representation, a veil of Maya woven by our intellect to make the chaos of the will digestible. Obligations are threads in this veil, patterns we agree to follow. To break free, you must perform the radical act of piercing this veil, of withdrawing your assent from the game entirely. This is why mere rebellion or refusal is insufficient. The anarchist who breaks the rules of society is still fundamentally obsessed with the rules of society. He is still reactive, still defined by the prison walls he hates. True liberation for Schopenhauer is the cessation of striving itself. Consider the man who dedicates his life to the obligation of professional success. He works 80 hours a week, sacrifices family, health, and quiet reflection, all because of an internal mandate that he must reach the apex. Schopenhauer observes this man and says, "You are building a massive gilded cage, but the cage is not the problem. The problem is the desire to climb the spire within it. This striving is the will manifesting itself as ambition. When the man achieves his goal, the will does not stop. It immediately creates a new obligation, maintaining success, protecting wealth, or seeking the next higher tier. The prison is therefore self-renewing." The first, though temporary escape route Schopenhauer identifies is the path of aesthetic contemplation. This is the momentary glorious suspension of the will. When a man is truly absorbed in pure music, beholding a transcendent piece of art, or lost in the contemplation of a beautiful landscape, for that brief window, he ceases to be an individual subject driven by needs and desires. He becomes a pure, will-less spectator. In this state, there is no striving, and therefore, no obligation. The mind rests from the tyranny of the I want, and in that silence the walls of the prison vanish. It is a moment of pure objectification. The individual stops caring about how the painting can benefit his career, or whether the music can improve his social standing, or how the sunset can be leveraged for a perfect social media post. He simply is. This moment is nirvana accessible to the average person, a philosophical breathing space. But Schopenhauer is brutally honest. Aesthetic bliss is fleeting. The individual must eventually return to the world of striving, to the will that demands food, sex, shelter, and reputation. The guards of the prison may have taken a smoke break, but they are already returning to their posts. For true definitive freedom, the ultimate conclusion to the suffering of self-imposed obligation, a more radical, devastating path is required, the negation of the will. This is the climax of Schopenhauer's thought and the final, terrifying answer to the question of the prison. To negate the will is to stop wanting to live in the way the will dictates. It is philosophical asceticism. It demands the voluntary rejection of the primary impulses that sustain the chains of obligation. The man must renounce the pursuit of pleasure, embrace chastity, because the sexual drive is the ultimate affirmation of the will to live. Welcome poverty, and cultivate profound sympathy for the suffering of others, recognizing that their pain is identical to his own. When a man practices this negation, he is systematically dismantling the scaffolding of his personal prison from the inside out. Every obligation to sustain a luxurious lifestyle, to raise a family, to compete in the marketplace, is discarded because it is recognized as a mere tool of the will. The prison walls crumble when the individual stops using the bricks. This is not a message of easy self-help, it is a profound metaphysical surgery. The truly free man, in Schopenhauer's view, is the saint, the ascetic, the figure who looks upon the endless, cyclical striving of human life, the constant creation and submission to obligations, and simply opts out. He achieves quietism, a state of profound peace based on absolute non-involvement. His prison dissolves because he no longer affirms the reality of the prison. However, the tragedy of this conclusion lies in its almost impossible difficulty. Schopenhauer understands that this path is accessible only to a tiny minority, the philosophical geniuses and the spiritual masters. The vast majority of men cannot and will not negate their will. They will continue to affirm life, to pursue goals, to feel the deep, inescapable need for structure, duty, and obligation. They cling to the very chains that bind them, because the alternative, the void of will-lessness, the cessation of identity, is too frightening. This is the definitive verdict on the prison men build for themselves. It is built of self-deception and maintained by the fundamental impulse to be and become. Men hate their obligations, resent their duties, and yearn for escape. Yet they simultaneously rush back to construct new, stricter rules for themselves. They crave the structure of the prison because, without it, they face the terrifying formlessness of true, unconditioned freedom, a freedom that demands the surrender of the very self they have fought so hard to create and maintain through their dutiful actions. Therefore, the only successful escape is not a prison break, but a suicide of the ego, a voluntary withdrawal from the cycle of existence. Freedom from obligation is synonymous with freedom from the will, and freedom from the will is essentially freedom from life as it is commonly understood. The man who breaks free must look back at the millions still striving, still rushing to meet deadlines, still promising fidelity, still chasing success, and realize they are willingly embracing the illusion. The obligation is their self-inflicted wound, and the suffering is proof of their commitment to the chain. The philosophical implication is devastating. Men are not victims of circumstance. They are victims of their own metaphysical error. They possess the key, the capacity for intellectual contemplation, and the realization of the will, but they consistently refuse to use it because the lock is their own heart, stubbornly devoted to the cycle of desire and disappointment. The ultimate freedom, the end of all obligation, requires the end of all personal desire. The prison is destroyed not by force but by indifference. When the world demands something of you, the truly free man, the quietist, answers with a profound, terrifying, and liberating silence. He has no needs left to obligate him. The chains, lacking purpose, simply fall away. This journey through Schopenhauer's uncompromising vision reveals a painful truth. The most brutal prisons are built by the hands of those who believe they are constructing their future, their character, or their moral standing. They are obligations masquerading as purpose. The true act of courage is not meeting the obligation but questioning the will that commands it. We have now traveled through the deepest corridors of existential philosophy, examining the self-imposed chains that define the human condition according to Schopenhauer. The insights are often heavy, often challenging, but they are crucial for any man committed to living authentically. I know this perspective changes how you view your daily life, your duties, and your responsibilities. It forces a fundamental reevaluation of what you believe you owe to the world and to yourself. Now I need your input. If you had to summarize Schopenhauer's path to freedom from obligation in one powerful, short mantra, a single phrase that unlocks the prison door, what would that phrase be? Write your suggested phrase in the comments below. Your contribution strengthens the entire community searching for this definitive truth. That collective effort, that shared realization, builds real philosophical traction. You recognize the value of this kind of challenging, deep-dive content. You seek the knowledge others fear to confront. Show the platform that this rigorous intellectual exploration must continue by clicking the like button and joining the few. the dedicated subscribers who prioritize clarity over comfort. Tap that subscribe button and become part of the audience that demands the deepest truths uncovered. Now, understand this. The release from obligation is merely one necessary step in the grand strategy of self-mastery. The next challenge involves an equally profound psychological barrier, the trap that prevents men from acting on the very truths they discover. Prepare yourself. We will dive into the most insidious form of self-sabotage, revealing the subtle mechanism that ensures men forever remain paralyzed between knowing what they must do and actually doing it. You will want to be here for that revelation. It changes everything.